Hello everybody and welcome to today's demonstration, Fishing at Sunset, where I'm going to show you a really easy, simple way to paint a lovely sunset like this one. This is the reference photo I will be working from. I'll pop a link to it in the description below. You can see the colours that I use on screen there. I'll also pop a list of all my equipment and paints and everything like that in the video description. I'm using Saunders Waterford paper here today, cold pressed 100% cotton paper. You can see I've just penciled in a little outline of a boat in the middle, and I've taped off the horizon line using my masking tape before wetting the area thoroughly with a large brush. And now all I'm doing is using my smaller wash brush to carefully outline the sun on the wet paper in my beautiful yellow colour, which is quinacridone gold. I think I've spelt that and pronounced it right, but I will be referring to it as Quin Gold from now on because that is rather a mouthful. So yes, starting with Quin Gold and just spreading that all over the paper, really, just nice long streaks because it's such a bright and beautiful colour, very warm, and I want to lay it down as sort of the foundation for this piece. And now I'm introducing the second colour, which is cadmium orange, which is also a lovely warm colour. And whilst the paper is lovely and wet, you can see I can just put it straight on and blend it into that yellow really beautifully. You can see that I'm taking care to avoid the little white circle that I left for the sun. You can also possibly see that because the paper is wet, the yellow is diffusing and softening that round outline a little bit, so it's not too solid. I wanted the idea of the sun sort of peeping and mistily sort of, visible through the beautiful sunset layers. Obviously you could, if you're more comfortable, mask out the sun with a drawing gum or masking fluid, so you can gleefully paint over it and not have to worry about it. That's a very viable technique, but today I thought I'd show you another way to do it. You get a softer edge doing it this way, so we'll see how it works out later in the video. So now I'm introducing a third colour into the sunset. This is light red, which is a really lovely warm colour to use. Obviously you can use whichever colours you have to hand, whichever paints you favour. For me, I chose this combination because they're all warm colours and I think they work together really beautifully. And just putting them all on, you can see in these lovely long sweeping brush strokes, trying to blend it all in there, layering up a little bit, making sure I leave plenty of that bright gold peeping through. I'm not worrying too much about these horizontal lines because I'm going to put in some lovely streaky horizontal clouds on the top. But I do want everything to be at least a little bit blended. So you can see here I'm just blending the outline of the sun a little bit just to soften that down and really give it a little bit of misty haze, which is something you can do with a clean damp brush. It's just soften a few edges, but do make sure that it's clean first, otherwise you may end up with some unintended smudges. So here we are now. I'm going to put in the clouds. Again, I'm doing it whilst this lovely sky is still quite wet, so when I put the paint on it will soften the edges and I won't get those thick hard lines. I'm using a synthetic mop brush and it's lightly damp, I've just put a little bit of colour on the tips, and you can see I'm just sweeping it gently across the paper so it picks up just a little bit of that colour. This is burnt umber that I'm using for this. It's perhaps not the usual colour I go for clouds. Normally I'd go for a grey or a purple, but I wanted to remain in keeping with these lovely warm colours that I've used here, and burnt umber is a lovely warm brown. So you can see just gentle and casual strokes of the brush. I didn't decide where to put the clouds before the sunset. I just thought I'd put them in wherever they looked like they needed to be, depending on what the wash ended up looking like. So now that I'm happy with the sky, I'm just going to peel off that masking tape. You have to do this quite carefully because you can see at the sides here I've had a little bit of paint gather. So I'm just using a tissue to carefully wipe that up, using a nice quick movement to prevent any of that paint from running onto this lovely white space here and contaminating the paper below. So this is what the sky looks like now it's dry. You can see I've popped in a couple of extra clouds, including one just drifting across the sun there. I think it's a really nice effect, not covering it too much, but just giving that sense of scale to the sky that the clouds are travelling in front of the sun. So now again I'm just wetting the paper, and I'm using my wash brush to just gently dust a path underneath the sun, a lovely light path there. And again I'm using that lovely Quin Gold, which is so warm and so wonderful. Just using these gentle sweeping horizontal strokes, not being too precious about it, just sweeping the paint, relying on a little bit of water that I've put there already to start diffusing that colour out a little bit. And now for the sea, I'm using a diluted down ultramarine blue, which is a lovely, lovely blue. It's quite strong, it's quite a powerful colour when used in concentrate, so you can see I've diluted it down quite a lot here. I started putting it along the bottom of the painting where the colour would naturally be a little bit deeper as it's closer to the viewer, so it would be darker, and then just blending that up to the top. I'm going to do the same on the other side and just keep adding a little bit of blue until I'm happy with the shade. You can see also I'm just using these careful sweeping moments to connect it to the lovely golden light path we have in the centre. I'm doing my best not to brush the ultramarine over the yellow because blue and yellow make green, and while a green sea is a wonderful and beautiful thing, perhaps in a different painting, maybe not this one. So the next step is to very carefully begin adding in some of the sunset colours to the sea. You don't want to be too heavy-handed with this. You need to be quite careful and have a light touch, because if you if you overdo it too much, if you throw in too much colour and go over and over, you can end up muddying the paint and getting sort of a dark, murky, opaque effect. And for the water, it's nice to maintain the translucency that is so characteristic of these watercolour paints. So you can see I'm just using a little bit of the light red and the cadmium orange to just gently sweep in these little strokes. I'm trying not to go over and over them too much, just to do one nice bold stroke and then let it diffuse into the blue, praying that it doesn't go green. But just, yeah, relying on the blendability of this watercolour at this stage, which is still nice and wet on the paper, so it will diffuse in just as long as you don't start scrubbing it over and over and make it muddy. And you can see I'm just using a mixture of colours. I'm not just sort of going one after the other after the other. I'm sort of picking them up off my palette, looking at the paper and thinking, what does that need? Rather than doing it specifically thinking, oh, I have to go from red to orange to yellow. I'm just looking at the paper and thinking, that could do with a little more yellow, you know, and then doing that. Lovely, adding a little bit of spontaneity into a painting such as this. And there we are, so I've taken off that second piece of masking tape I put on. You don't need to put that on if you like, if you're confident in your ability to do the sea in lovely horizontal lines and not smear the blue up into the sunset. I was not fully confident in that because sometimes my brush sweeps tend to go upwards rather than horizontally, so I put the masking tape on there as a precaution more than anything else. So now I'm happy with the sea and the sky. They're both dry, by the way. I used a hairdryer on them. And now I'm using a small flat brush and some more of the lovely burnt umber to start filling in my boat. Now you don't need to worry too much about putting too much detail on this because if we check back to our beautiful reference photo, the boat and our fisherman friend is almost entirely in silhouette here. You could use a darker colour if you prefer. Normally I would use perhaps a black or a grey or even a very, very dark blue like an indigo to fill in a silhouette, but with these lovely, lovely warm colours I thought the burnt umber worked really well. So you can see I'm putting it on quite darkly to maintain that illusion of a silhouette, but I think the warmth of it works really well with the rest of the colours in the painting. So I used a flat brush for the boat to get the general shape in nice and quickly, and now I've switched to a very fine brush. This is a brush from the ProArt Masterstroke Series 60. It's a fine miniature brush, size 4/0 if anyone's interested. It's perfect for this kind of work. And I'm just basically, all I'm doing is going in and carefully filling in the shape of the pencil silhouetted sketch that I put in before, which is still peeping through the paint. That's the joy of translucent watercolour, is you can sketch it out first, wash it over and then fill it in after. And now I want to do the reflection of the boat in the water, again just using this flat brush with some more burnt umber and just sweeping the flat brush carefully, holding it so the flat edge is against the paper, just in little horizontal wiggles down, following the path that the boat would follow. Pulling a few of those extra reflections out to the side and just making sure I don't go too far down the page. And there we are, that's our little boat done. And our little fisherman friend, of course, he needs a fishing rod. Now, I'm not super confident in my fine painting skills here in order to paint in the fishing rod. If you are, then congratulations. You're braver than me. So I'm cropping out a little bit here and using fine liner. So I've just set my ruler following the path of the rod, and I'm very faintly drawing along with my fine liner. There we see. I think that's worked quite well. Even though I'm using black against the brown boat, I'm literally just drifting the nib very lightly across the paper. I want the lightest line possible. It looks quite faint and it sort of blends in with the brown. You can get sepia fine liners, which I think would be a better colour, but I don't happen to have any at the moment, so black it is. And I think it blends in just fine. So for the finishing touch for this painting is I'm going to paint in the lovely little flock of birds we see in the photo flying home for their after their dinner, presumably, above the fisherman's head. I'm painting the flock slightly larger than it shows in the photograph using my artistic license, as I think it would be difficult to do them in watercolour quite so small and clustered together. I think it might look a bit sort of scrunched up. So I'm doing more birds and making the flock a little bit larger, but I'm maintaining that lovely sort of flying V shape. And I'm not doing seagull shapes here. You can see I'm just doing a slightly wiggly line for the body and then popping in a triangle either at the top or the bottom for the wing. This is a lovely shortcut you can do for silhouetted birds in flight, mostly long-necked birds such as geese. I've used this for geese before, and these could very well be a lovely V of geese flying home after a long day. Of course, over the sea they could equally be a long-necked seabird like a cormorant with a belly full of fish. So I'll leave it up to you to decide which bird do you think these are. Whichever bird they are, they're very fun to paint. Like I said, you just need a slightly wiggly line, and then about 2/3 of the way down, you need a little triangle, either going up or going down for the wing shape. And here we are with the finished painting. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed painting it. Love the richness and warmth of the colours in this one. I also really enjoyed painting that little V of birds, and I think our fisherman friend there looks very happy on his boat. So let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more like this if you're interested, and please also consider visiting my Patreon page and signing up. The minimum lowest tier I think is only £1 for free reference photos. There's also extra art videos and all sorts of goodies over on there if you're interested. So thank you very much again for watching. I really appreciate all of you, and I can't wait to see you all again in the next video.